Record. Awesome. Now we're ready to rock and roll. Today's lecture is the Mongo database. So yesterday you were learning to use the CRUD methods: create, read, update, and delete. And those methods have corresponding actions, right? So create, read, update, and delete have corresponding methods on the server side, right? Express, here's those as kind of particular routes, right? So a route has a corresponding method, and based on what it hears, it does something, right? So yesterday and the day before, you've been setting up the server to listen to routes and to perform specific actions based on the method request. And that data just kind of lived in the server, right? It wasn't really anywhere. It wasn't really doing anything besides living in the server. And if you update the server, all your data is gone, right? I mean, you stop the server, restart the server, anything that you might have pushed into an array that was living in memory is no longer there, right? Server needs to kind of rebuild the default array, and then you need to perform those actions again. So we're looking for something with a bit more kind of persistence. And that's what a database is. A database represents persistence. I need to store my data so I can retrieve that data later at any point in time, right? Reboot the server, data's there. Connect to the database, I have everything intact. As well as databases provide additional services, right? Storing everything in an array that only has specific methods and some specific logic that it knows what to do is pretty limited. As the amount of information grows, keeping track of unique instances of things based on IDs. So based on that concept, what we're going to talk about today is to describe what is a database, right? So what is it? How are we going to use it? If you've never worked with a database, you probably just conceptually understand the term. It's something used to store data. Describe what is Mongo. So Mongo is the database. It's a very particular type of database. There's lots of other databases out there. I've worked with a few others. Postgres is a database I've also taught. And so the concept of database and whichever tool you're using is still the same. They just have different, I guess, configurations for them. Then we're going to understand the difference between a Mongo database, a sub-database, a collection, and a document. And ultimately, what that translates into is we have our main database, and then we can spin off little sub-databases, and those sub-databases can be, think of it like a folder structure. I'm going to use a folder structure to contain specific information, and then a collection is a subfolder in there that contains the actual elements that we're keeping track of. And an actual element or an entry in a database, in a Mongo database, is a document, which ultimately is really just an object. Okay, we'll get Mongo up and running. Matt had installed Mongo that Friday when we did the presentations. It was all running. We guaranteed everyone was able to do the install, get it up and running. So we're going to make sure that's working. We're going to list our sub-databases, choose a sub-database. Ultimately, if we want to get down to the document level, then we need to create a collection and then insert a document, right? Insert at least one so we have something to look at. And then we can also insert multiple documents. It's the point of having a database if it's just one thing. Once we have things in the database, the next natural thing is to maybe query the elements in the database. Can I find specific elements based on keys? Do I return everything from that document, or do I return only specific key value pairs? So there's different syntax that we can use to retrieve or query. And then, sometimes documents get deleted, right? We need to remove things from our database at times. And you did that with fruits. Like you can add a fruit, you can delete a fruit, right? So if we have fruits in our document, in our collection, and maybe your favorite fruits, and all of a sudden strawberries is no longer your favorite fruit, you then go and remove strawberry because it's no longer one of your favorite fruits. Shouldn't be in the collection of favorite fruits. We can also update. Maybe you put apples and you found out that you have a very specific apple that you enjoy, or you moved from Macintosh to Gala apples. And if that's the case, we update the record that has that particular apple, and we just change some information in it. You kind of did that yesterday, right? And then we drop a collection or sub-database. So the idea is maybe we're testing stuff and we have all these databases on our machine and we need to kind of get rid of them. That happens when we teach. We all have all of these databases that we've taught for previous classes, and the necessity comes that we need to delete those databases to recreate it in order to teach that content once again. And so we'll learn how to drop a collection or a sub-database, either one, as well as remove the documents, which we would have done right there, right? So kind of what is a database? So a database is just an organized collection of data, right? Used to store that we access electronically. That's in a nutshell, that's what it is. And it's really there to support our CRUD app, right? Create, read, update, and delete. We need to have something with persistent data, and with that we can retrieve or update or edit those elements. Did anyone, I'm just curious, for the project, I think I had seen one or two of you leverage local storage. Did anyone use local storage during the project? Investigate local storage? I thought I saw one or two people.
Yeah, I used it in my project.
Okay, cool. So that is a form of persistence, but that was a very temporary form of persistence. And local storage stored it as kind of an object in its local storage system, and it had methods to get and set it. So that's one temporary, right? And I just mentioned that because we've been right now able to make temporary changes, but as soon as the server is shut down and restarted, we lose those changes. But if we did local storage on the front end for the end user, because that's a browser thing, we'd be able to be semi-persistent within that browser, okay? They could close the application, restart the application, and the browser should have held on to that data. But we need to take it even more now. We need to store it permanently, okay? So that's the need here. Make our data persistent. That's the key word here. Okay, and there's many kinds of databases out there that we can use. SQL itself is structured query language. It's a really, really popular database. Microsoft uses it. When I was supporting SharePoint, the database that we used was Microsoft SQL to support SharePoint in the back end. And so how to learn how to make queries using that, how to configure that database. Things like using an Excel spreadsheet also is very much kind of like what a structured query language database is. And then another type of database is a NoSQL, okay? And that follows a different structure. And that kind of structure that it follows is that data is stored in objects, okay? It's a less strict environment. And it's just a different way of storing the data. SQL stores things as tables and rows, like you would look at an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet. That's something that we're all familiar with in storing data. If somebody wanted me to collect data that I could edit easily, I would jump to a Google Sheet. It's just easy enough. I can use an API call to grab that data. It gives it to me as an object. I loop over and I can create whatever I want with that. Instead of doing something like an SQL install a tool to grab the data, that's a bit more time consuming. And so using a NoSQL database can be time consuming to set up. got to install Mongo, you got to get it up and running. There's a bunch of configs, but it does provide some options. It is a little bit easier to learn. Another really big database out there is Firebase. Has anyone heard of Firebase? Just curious. Anyone do any reading? Any might have researched? Okay. Firebase is a Microsoft product, and it allows you to create databases, authentication, push up a server, host your server, create an application. So there's a lot going on there. In the evening class, in the JavaScript class I teach, specifically, we cover Firebase as a tool of doing that. And that Firebase tool is the same thing as this. It is a no SQL database. It's stored as an object, and that's how we retrieve it, and that's how we kind of push it back up. So Mongo is the same construct as that. One is it's kind of a software as a service. Firebase is online. Our Mongo database is going to be installed locally. So it's going to be local to our server, okay? And so MongoDB is the database that's going to wind up holding the JavaScript objects, okay? And the database itself is kind of just an application that's running in the background on your machine, okay? That's really all it's doing is you turn it on and it listens on a particular port on that server, and that's how we communicate with that machine on that port. I think, let me see, I'm going to try my annotation one more time here. I think when we were talking about, servers, right? So say that's our web server, right? Our web server is going to listen for connections from a client, right? That's going to be the request, and then that will be the response, right? And right here, where it connects to is listening on a particular port. That port is port 80. That's what it's listening in on for the connection. Now, our web server, that's our web server. Our SQL server is going to be listening on a port, I think it's 17071. I forgot. It's definitely 27. I think it may be 017. And it's listening on that port. So when we do spin up our server, you will see in all of the brrr that comes out, you're going to see a reference to a port number later on in the afternoon when we actually configure Mongoose, which is the tool that we're going to use to interface with our database. We have to tell it to connect to this port. So I just want to point it out. Services that run on a server listen in on port numbers. That's how they communicate with one another or with the outside world. Okay, so the outside world wants to connect, and so we're providing this port number. Here, the web server listens on that, and Mongo is going to be listening on this. If this was Postgres, another database, it listened in on a different port number. Okay, so the port numbers are relevant out there in the real world. Okay, clear everything, clear all drawings. Okay, get out of annotate. So we're going to have a series of databases. Okay, so you can have multiple smaller databases stored in Mongo, and that's the idea. And imagine a company like Google. They have multiple databases. Nothing is really stored in one database. You split it up. And the idea is also splitting it up for performance reasons, right? Having a super huge, large database and having the performance of this database, always having to listen to all these requests would take its toll on the server, right? Or the network connection to that server itself would need to be strengthened, right? Or we need to go from like gigabit to some whatever like fiber optic would provide, because there's so many connections going there. So if you break it up into smaller ones, they're more manageable, backing up databases. So in the end, you want to split them up into smaller databases or sub-databases in this instance, right? There's a lot of times when there's multiple database servers that are actually running on a network. Sometimes they set them up as farms, a farm of database servers. So when a connection comes in, any one of the servers that's available can then respond back, and that increases performance, right? It's just kind of offloading. First server gets hit, second server then responds, and that's how they do it. Okay, so just imagine us, we're Google. Well, we have shopping cart, so we can keep track of your shopping carts, product catalog, any recommendations. All these databases are separate, but in the end, we can build relationships between them. Things like kind of a concept of a foreign key. So every document in the database is going to have a key that uniquely identifies that thing. And there may be other fields in there that show a relationship to another database or another collection and an object in the collection. Okay? So just because they look like they're separate things, they could have information that points one element to look or is kind of a child of something else, or there's a relationship there. And we'll get into that, not today, but we'll get into that later on next week. Mongo collections. So we'll jump into a Mongo collection. So Mongo itself is, once again, NoSQL, non-relational. So instead of storing things as tables with rows and columns like we would an Excel spreadsheet, databases use these other means of doing it, and they do it in objects. So objects are something we are very familiar with as JavaScript developers here, right? It's one of the two container-based data types that we use. What's the other container-based data type that we use in JavaScript? You've been working with it for years. What?
An array.
An array, right? An array is something that we've been using, right? An array is more generic. You just put things into an array. An array contains numbers, strings, objects, other arrays, and it's just used itself to represent that the things that are in here probably have some sort of relationship to one another, right? That's why they're in this box. An object, you're almost guaranteed that things in an object are to describe something because we're all objects. Okay, so everything that we are, there are key properties and values that describe those properties. And so an object is much more consistent with explaining or describing something versus an array. An array is just like, let's just throw everything into the array, or, the things that are in the array could have a relationship with each other. And for the most part, they do, right? But a collection here is a set of documents. So I did mention that we can have a subdatabase, and a subdatabase can have a collection, and that collection then can have a document or an entry, or here a set of data records, right? It's kind of very abstract. So we'll use a simplified real world example of this, right? So if I had some sort of contact for someone, I could have first name, last name, get their address, their state, telephone, standard contact that I might have, their birthday, their email. And that in itself could be an object, right? Or a document, which is truly an object. All we'd have to do is really I could copy and paste that and just stick curly braces around it, and boom, I got an object, right? It's easy enough. I mean, that's really what it looks like right in here, the object construct, okay? So a collection would be many of those documents together, many contacts, no difference in looking through your phone. All those contacts would be a single document. All those documents together would represent a collection of your contacts, okay? And that's how we're going to store it. And that's how we're going to reference it when we create the contacts, when we're looking for documents. We're not going to say document necessarily, but we're going to find and tell it what we want to find. We're going to insert, we'll tell it what we want to insert. Same thing with deleting and adding. So first thing we need to do is to work with the Mongo database, okay? So I want everyone to take a moment and to get into the student folder for today's lecture. So open up your terminal window. I'm in instructor examples. All right, you should be student examples. And Jeremy brought it to my attention the other day that when I was doing the morning exercise, I think on Bubble Sort, I had put what I was doing inside morning exercises, and that it became a conflict. Jeremy opened up a same file, and this might have happened to several of you, with the same name. And so I pushed mine up, and he tried to push his up, and it was like, hey, there's already a bubble sort JS file there, and you're trying to push up yours. Yours is different, and that became a merge conflict. So anytime I do anything from this point in time, goes inside instructor examples. I just thought because it was a morning exercise, I'd put it in there, but that wasn't the right place to put it. So everything I'm going to do, everything you do there, no conflicts, no nothing. Everything should work. Opened in the terminal. All right. Just give me a thumbs up when you're in the terminal. You have one terminal window, you're in the directory, and we'll jump in. 10, getting there, sweet. ls, wd, I am in change directory, instructor, examples, bloop. Sweet. Who's this little one? What's this icon here today? Aaron. Okay, I'm surprised you're not using the emoji of me. I think that should be. Spend so much time there.
Yeah. I was switching it up. I created a whole bunch of Avenger emojis last night.
I did see the thing. What was it? Was it posted in? Oh yeah, I have to show that, right?
Yeah, Jeremy.
The first thing I look at this morning, I was like, oh well, look at that. What is he? When I saw this, I was like, what is he talking about? He created a legendary Pokemon. I went down. I was like, oh snap, that's me. Pretty fun.
Special attack bubble sort. That was my favorite.
Free time on your hands, people. All right, sounds good. I just need to minimize this. Too big over here. All right, so we're inside of it. Awesome. What we want to do now is we're going to type in Mongo D. And this is how we're going to know that the Mongo database is running. And one of the key things that we should see here is 27017. All right, so I had misspelled it. We should get that, right? As long as you don't get an error. What we're going to see is here, this thing right here, okay? So let me see here. All right, MongoDB. Boink.
You said MongoDB or MongoD?
Oh, MongoD. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I want to make sure because I'm looking at it and I'm like, that says D, but are we supposed to put
Yeah,
D?
you know what it is? You're going to see later that DB is something that we use. Like when we open the database, DB, show. So my head just went to DB, but it's MongoD for the database. We're going to be using two tools today. MongoD, which is the database. And once we get the database up and running, we don't really go to the command line to manipulate it. We do it all via Mongoose. So we have this elevated tool that allows us to manipulate the database. And that's true for a lot of them. When I teach the Postgres, we use several different tools. SQLize is one of them. PG Promise is another one. There's different tools that play the middleman between us wanting to manipulate the database. There's a tool in the middle that we need to choose. And then depending on the, I see the emoji. Depending on the documentation, sometimes we'll use a tool where the documentation maybe isn't all that great. So students get confused with it. All right, we got 15. Once again, you should see that waiting for connection on port 2701. Okay. That's our port. Minimize this a little. That's what we want to see. Once again, there's a little snapshot here to show you what you would see. Obviously, if there's an error, you know you're going to get an error. The last thing we should see is this line. So if you do not see that line, then it's possible that something might have been wrong with the install. But I remember I was on that lecture watching Matt do the install for everyone, and it looked like everyone had it working. This worked, so I can't imagine it not working, right? 18, 19, 20, 21. I think we got most, right? 18. 19.
I don't see that in the last line.
You don't?
Mine says shut down, going to close listening sockets, now exiting, shutting down with code 100.
Oh, so then that can you share your screen? Let me stop sharing mine. Let's take a look.
Right here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's a little small.
Oh,
My eyes. Can you like just zoom in on maybe the terminal? Like just go in the terminal and Command plus plus plus.
I can try.
You just do Command plus plus plus. It should. So it's saying MongoD, right?
I don't know how to zoom in on Windows.
Oh, it's a Windows. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on Windows.
Maybe it's like a window, the FN key or something. But shutting down with code 100. Duh, duh, duh. Okay, going to close. So was this working that Friday? Everything was working on that Friday when?
I thought it was.
Okay. Server R2 build environment. Okay.
Jake, do you know where your database is actually supposed to be? I've run into similar stuff with this, and instead of calling just like the MongoD, I have to specify the path of the database. Like it says it's
too. Yeah.
Drive, which you probably don't have a folder there for that, which you could make one there for that maybe, or you could specify like where it's supposed to go.
So maybe if you went to, because I do see one of those lines does say data directory C : data / DB not found, and it's terminating. So it is looking for that. Let me just take a quick look and see. Maybe when you did the install, it took you into that Mongo, into that directory. Can you actually open up maybe another terminal window and go into C data DB and just see if you ran it from there?
So just type C.
Yeah, change directories. You're going to CD into the C drive, /data, /DB, and just see if that takes you in there. So it can't find it? No such file? Oh, it's /. You're doing // right?
Whoops.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's data.
Data.
I think you have to do data. Yeah, data, /DB, just see if it takes you in there. No. So just try to change directories just into C : data. Let's just see if that exists. Okay, it doesn't exist, so it's not allowing us to get. Can you just do CD into, change directory into the C drive itself, and let's just see if it takes us there, maybe. All right, so you're in there. We don't see anything with data. So let me take a quick look, because again, with Windows machines.
So I was doing something similar to this, and I had to make my own data DB directory.
Oh, okay.
And then it would work for me at least.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's give that a shot. Try making a data directory.
Just like that in C.
Yep. And then go into the data directory. And then make a DB folder.
Okay.
Boom. And then go into that. I'm just thinking if we're in there, maybe that's where we need to be. And now do the MongoD and see if that works. Oh, sweet. Is it working?
Looks like it.
All right, cool.
Okay,
There
thank you.
Sweet. Awesome. I will share my screen now. Boop. Boop. All right. So everybody's good. Yeah, I was seeing if I could find the solution. Sometimes it's just as easy as that. All right, now that we have MongoD there, right, we are going to start to examine our, I'm going to clear my terminal by just doing Command K. Command K will just clear the previous output that's in the terminal, so I can just kind of see a blank one, but we're still in. Mongo is still listening, right? I haven't freed my terminal yet. My terminal is still being used by Mongo. If I wanted to get out of Mongo, I would just do exit. So I'm going to do exit. Oh, it did not exit. Let me see. I'm going to do this one more time. MongoD, right? Let's see if I type exit. It may not be exit. Yeah, I have to do Control C to get out of it. Okay. So let me get back into it. Command K to clear it. So Control C is what I would need to get out of it. All right. So I thought exit when we do node, right? If we're in node at a node terminal, you can type exit, you can type quit. It takes you out of node, but with Mongo, it doesn't. So now that we're here, I want to take a look at whatever databases we have available to us. So I'm going to do show DBS and show DBS, right? Oh, let's keep working on Mongo shell. Let's see why it's not showing me anything. Oh, you know why? I think I've typed in we have to open up a second terminal. That's why I'm in the wrong terminal here. Okay, so I'm going to do this. We're going to open up a second terminal. MongoD starts the database, okay? So when we do MongoD, it's going to start the database, okay? Now we're going to connect to Mongo using the Mongo terminal shell. So there's a couple of ways for us to connect to the database. One is through a terminal shell, and the other is through Mongoose, something we're going to do later today. So in here, in this terminal window, I'm going to do Command T to open up a second terminal window. So it keeps this terminal window open. I'm sorry, it opens up a second tab. Keeps the same terminal window open, just opens up a second tab. And in here, I'm going to type in Mongo. Okay, this is where we're going to be working. MongoD spins up the server, has it listening on a port, grabs the terminal. We really can't do anything with the terminal. And then Mongo, once I do that, it then allows us to access the database, okay? Put here, I'm just gonna make sure everyone's on point, all right? Okay. Just trying to use work here. There we go. All right. All right. Give me a thumbs up. You got the second terminal window open. And when we're doing this, you're not outside of today, maybe one additional class, you won't be in the Mongo terminal working with the database. Something we learn how to do so you know what the commands are, but it's not something we're going to be managing our database from the terminal window. There'll be not so many times that you need to go in there. There's also GUI-based tools that we can use to take a look at the database. So working with something from the terminal isn't always the most efficient way of doing it. Terminals usually provide us more functionality. There's just commands that aren't available through a GUI. They didn't make the button, they didn't make the dropdown, but there's flags that allow us to do stuff, okay? So now that we're here, what I'm gonna do is show the database, show DBS, all right? And what I see here is I'm going to have additional databases because I was working with additional things, okay? If I was working with Mongo for the last year, I would have a lot more databases here. If this is a recent install of Mongo on this particular laptop, it's a newer laptop. So you're going to have admin, config, and local. Those should be the three that you have. Okay, those should be the three that everyone has.
I only have local coming in.
You only have local?
Yeah, and it's saying there's some gigabytes in there.
Okay, here, I'm just going to do this. I just want to make sure, once again, I'm going to take it slow today. So you don't have, you just have local. Oh, so if you go into, you went into the database, the local database?
What do you mean go into the local database?
Oh, so what do you see here?
When I said show DBS, it said it just has local.
Oh, okay. So you don't see admin and you don't see config.
Right.
Okay. That's all. Let's see if that turns into any problem later on. If it does, we'll come back and address it. Maybe Mongo needs to be reinstalled, or maybe we need to create those databases manually. I haven't yet seen where they haven't existed. So if they do represent a problem, we'll come back. We'll take a look at it, Jacob.
Sounds good.
Sweet. So what we're going to do is, now I have this learn database here, right? So I am going to, just give me a second to drop the database, drop. So I think it's db dot drop, don't database. Okay, here. Don't do anything yet. I'm just going to drop my use learn, and then I'm going to db dot drop database. Boop. All right. And now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to show DBS, right? All right. So what I want to show you is that I had the database and I got rid of it so we can walk through this together. Okay. The idea now is to create the database. Okay. And so what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be creating a sub database. Okay. So the main database is this Mongo, all-encompassing database. And we're going to spin off a sub database within Mongo. And by using this keyword use, if the database doesn't exist, use will create the database. Okay, and it doesn't exist here. So if I use it, it not only creates it, but it switches me into the learn DB. Okay. Now if I show database, let's see if it shows it. It doesn't show it yet, and it shouldn't show it for you either. Okay, and the reason is because it doesn't contain anything. We need to put a collection in there. Once we do, yeah.
Can I stop you before you get too far ahead here? The command use, can we equate that to like when we touch in our terminal or when we make a directory? Is it?
Yeah, so exactly. So that touch, so it serves two purposes. I'm just going to do here mongo.js. I'm just going to put a Mongo file. I'll just put some comments in here. But when we use this use keyword, use is going to do two things. Okay, it's either going to create DB if it doesn't exist, or if it does exist, if exists, connect to it. Okay, so it does two things for us. It'll connect to the other database. Now, once again, I'm in this thing, but I don't really see it. Right? If I show DBS, it's still not there. So let's just try this. What if I say use? I'm going to go into local just to see. I'm going to say, hey, here's local. I'm switched in local. Cool. I'm going to show DBS. I still don't see my learn one, but if I say use learn, it'll take me into it. So it's switching, right? I think the first time it did say switch to DB learn, but once again, we still don't see anything. Show DBS, we still don't see it because it doesn't have anything in it. We need a collection. That's what we need. So a database needs a collection, and that collection is going to contain the documents or the elements that we're looking to keep track of, create. Okay? So, say here, if I do DB, boom. It tells me the database that I'm in. Okay? So running the DB command shows me which database I'm in. So once again, if I said use local, and I'm like, hey, I'm in local. Maybe I did a bunch of stuff and I'm all the way down here and I'm like, I don't remember what database I am. I've been bouncing around. I could just do DB and it'll be like, oh, you're in local. And I'm like, whoa, I don't want to create the collection in local. I want to create it in learn. So I migrate over to learn. Now I'm in learn, DB, learn, right? Obviously here, if you type a command that doesn't exist, it'll tell you reference DB is not defined, okay? Command doesn't work. Okay, I'm just going to Command K to bring me back up, get rid of all the terminal commands. So we need to create a collection. So I'm just, I know we're doing this. Use, I'll say learn here. We're doing DB or show DBS. Another command was DB. just so that we can maybe just go back and reference those commands. If you get lost and you're like, what is it again? Instead of scrolling up, you can just look up here, right? We're going to create a collection. Now, what is a collection? A collection is similar to maybe like another table or something, or a spreadsheet that has tabs. And so this one spreadsheet has tabs, and each tab would be a collection. Or if this was an SQL database, it would be a table. But here, a collection is what we call this thing. So a collection will contain the documents. But once again, it's similar to a tab in an Excel spreadsheet or a table in an SQL-based database. And so our collection is going to contain information about things. And so we could have a collection that is for our users, and each object in our users collection would be or would contain this information, right? So users would be the collection, and then each document within that collection would be or contain those key value pairs, right? Think of it like when we covered classes and we would create a new class or instantiate a new instance of a class. It's very similar to that. If we create a document, we're instantiating, per se, a new instance of a document class. I'm not even sure that that's what it is. I'm just trying to relate something that makes sense. So users here would be the thing or an array that we would contain the thing, and then we would instantiate a unique user. Or actually, this would be the class itself, and then we'd have something in here for the users. So this is how we'd separate our information, right? Some users, we have some products, product name, category, catalog number, probably many more data points here to describe each user, right? I can possibly see that. But now we want to create a collection, right? So once again, I'm going to confirm that when I show DBS, I don't see learn. Learn isn't available. So I'm going to create the collection, and then I want to see it come. So I'm going to say db.create collection, and I'm going to create something called contacts. Okay? And then I'm going to show collections, and I should see contacts. And if I do show DBS, I should now see learn. Okay? So I'm going to give you a moment. Let's put this in here.
So when we do the DB learn or use learn, mine says use learn. When I typed in use learn, it says switch to DB learn.
Yeah, that's what it should say. So I'm just going to go up here. I got rid of my commands. But yes, if you use learn, so I'm going to do this. I'm in learn already. So say I want to kind of get out of learn and go to local. So I'm just going to say use local, right? Now watch my terminal. Switched to DB local. So now I'm in local, right? So now if I want to switch back to learn, I say use learn, and it says switch to learn. If you do DB, just the command DB, it'll tell you the database that you're in. Okay, so up here when we do DB, I'm going to put here shows or displays DB that you're in. Okay, show DBS shows all DBs, right? Okay, so that's what you should see as you swap back and forth. And now, once again, if we're here, if we created this thing, right? So db.create collection, right? And we said contacts. That's going to create a new collection, right? I'm going to run out of room here, but this will create collection. I might just do this. Instead of doing that, I'm going to create collection, right? And that'll create the collection, okay? And then to show collections, because we might have more than one, you would do show collections, okay? And so I'm in here, show collections, and I see that I have contacts, right? Is everyone good? I only see 15. 15. I'll make sure I'm not getting more. I don't want to lose anyone. So if you do get lost, or you do have questions, ask, because this stuff is easy to kind of get lost in. It's like, I don't know, he's typing all these commands. Sometimes they're fast. Sometimes he's going back. I don't want to lose anyone. Because it's important. The rest of the lecture just depends on us building this out.
So wait, well, we were supposed to do the DB create collection now?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah. Do that.
Does that have to be in learn?
Yeah, we are going to be in learn once we do that. You are correct.
But when we make it, it doesn't have to be in learn, or does it? Have
No,
to
remember when we make it, this is a collection. So a collection is something that exists inside of a database. So if we were to kind of visualize this, I'll just annotate it, right? If we have a database, right? Here's our learn database, right? And so our learn database is going to have a collection, right? And we're going to call this collection contacts. Okay. So, and inside of contacts, we are obviously going to be creating something. So contacts here is a collection. That's what it is. It's a collection. And then once we put something in here, whatever this is, if I create some sort of contact, right, that thing eventually is going to be a document. That's the terminology for it, okay? So this is where we are right now. We're in the learn database or sub database, right? So this is a sub DB, okay? Learn is a sub database. A collection is something that we just created, contacts. Think of collection as another tab in an Excel spreadsheet or a table, right? That's the best way visually that I understand it. If I was doing this and I had a database, I would kind of draw them out as like tables and be like, hey, here's a table with columns and rows, right? And then each entry would be, each one of these would be a collection, right? That's kind of visual representation of it. And then each one of these right here would be a document, right? That's a doc, that's a doc, right? Columns and the actual rows of information represent the documents themselves. Is that cool?
Well, yeah, I think I get that, but what do I need to, I switched into DB learning or to learn. Do I need to get out of that to do the DB dot create collection?
Oh, no, once you're in learn, this is where you run the command.
Okay.
So inside of learn, so make sure when you do DB, make sure that you're in the learn sub database, and inside of that, run DB create collection. Cool.
Mine gave me an error and said DB create collections is not a function.
Okay, let's do this. You want to share your screen?
Yeah.
Let me stop sharing mine. Take a look. Okay. So you're in there. So DB learn, you're in learn. Okay, so do DB. Let's do it. DB dot create collection.
Oh, is it collection or collections?
Is that an S? No, I think it's collection.
Ah.
That's why. Yeah. Did you do it? No, I don't think you did. You have to put contacts in there. So hit the up arrow. Hit the up arrow. Maybe we'll be able to just, yeah. No, you had it right. Just get rid of the S's.
Okay.
Get rid of that. Hit enter. Boom, you're in. That's the message we should get.
Okay. Then
Okay.
Perfect.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure that that is done and that you see it, right? Blink. Just make sure that those commands, you have it, shows it, and we can move on. Again, it's really easy to get lost in the terminal and, missing one letter here or a comma, and then you're going to see yourself in some sort of perpetual terminal where you're like, how do I get out of this thing? It won't let me escape. So this is really syntax heavy today. Okay. 16, 17, 18. We waiting for anyone else? We only have 18. 19. Is anyone having issues at all? Okay, that's good. I want to make sure no one's having any issues. Sweet. So now that we have this, we have our collection, okay? Now we want to add things or add a document, right? So I'm just going to put here some notes here, right? Add a document, right? And the idea of adding a document, the command that we're going to be doing is db.contacts.insert, okay? Insert. And we can see that insert is a method. We can clearly see that insert is a method. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, db.contacts.insert, and I'm not putting anything in there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit too. I'm not going to put anything inside. It's just an empty insert, and ultimately it's just going to create an empty thing or error, right? It's saying, hey, we didn't pass anything into it. And what is a document? Does anybody remember what a document is?
An object?
Yeah, so a document is an object, right? And an object is going to have some sort of key value pair mappings, right? So let's go back here, and instead of inserting an empty element, contacts.insert, I'm going to insert an empty object. Okay, we can populate the data. Think of it like creating an array of 10 things, but they're just spaces waiting for data to be populated. And then it should insert it. Okay? All right, I'm going with the Joe emoji. I like it. My son just bet me today $100 if I would grow my beard out for 3 months. It's a hard bet not to take.
Dude, not in the summertime, man. You can't do that to yourself.
I know, but it's $100. I feel like I want to teach him a lesson.
No way.
Yeah, that's an easy win, Joe. Just go for it.
Yeah, I feel like
I almost shaved mine off this morning, okay? So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough one.
yeah, I'm already at the point where I want to get rid of it.
It's going to
You got
get hot.
like 3 months there right now.
Is it 3 months? Then it's an easy bet, man. I'll win this because I was going to shave this off anyway. So
If I can survive in Texas heat with this beard, you can for sure survive.
That's very true, but still.
I want to prosper. I don't think I want to just survive anymore. I want to prosper in life. All right, cool. We got 13, 18, but still creating the. Oh, wait, I posted the wrong one, right?
Totally confused me because I looked. I was like, I already did
Oh,
that.
yeah. You know what? I'm doing the.
that.
I'm having some issues with the tool, the Mac to Imager tool. There we go. Let me see if this works. There we go. That's what we're supposed to do. Okay. Just want to make sure. Yeah, just bang that up. I think for the most part, everybody got it.
Oh, wait, Joe. Were we supposed to do the empty parentheses and then the empty parentheses and
Well,
brackets?
I wanted to do the empty one so you could see the error message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just
All right,
basically the
sweet.
error message so that you know you cannot pass an empty object or an insert with nothing inside of it. An insert requires, at a minimum, bare minimum, an object, and that object doesn't need to actually have any anything in it. Now that doesn't really make sense. Like, why would I put something in an empty object? We'll see this.
Yeah, I make enough mistakes on my own. I don't need to make
Yeah.
purposeful mistakes and see purposeful errors.
Okay. So we have this empty thing inside of there, but we want to add something, right? We don't just want to have an empty object. We want to add something. So I'm going to add something. I'm going to say db.contacts. That's the name of the collection, right? So db being this kind of global object, contacts being the collection. Contacts has a method called insert, okay? Open parens, open curly brace, and I'm going to hit enter to go to the next line. Being on the next line, we have 3 little dots that indicate we're still inside the insert method and we're inside the object. And now I'm just going to put name, colon, Jennifer, end quote, comma. Once again, be very specific with this, otherwise you're going to have some issues with it. I'm going to go to the next line, do phone, and then do 8675309. Even when I say that, I hear the song in my head.
You know, it's funny. I literally started singing it as soon as you started.
Does anyone not know what that is? I don't know if there's some people out there that may not know, like, why do these people talk about this song? Oh, yeah, that's a classic song I grew up with. All right, I'm going to do state, California. Okay. Once again, here I don't need another comma. It's the end of the object, but I am going to hit enter. I'm going to put a curly brace, a parens, and then I'm going to hit enter. And it says write results and inserted one. So we successfully put something in our database, right? I mean, we successfully put something in earlier, but at the same time, that thing that we put in earlier, why does this keep doing this? Let me delete this. That's not what we were doing. I just took a snapshot of this. Like, holds on to the last thing that I did.
Hey, Joe, question for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
After California, if we don't have a comma and then we decide to add something in later on, is that going to cause an issue?
Oh, no. Once the thing is in, you can update it and add additional fields later.
And it will automatically add a comma after California?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's happening under the hood. Like, if we say we want this thing to have additional key value pairs, we can do that. That's not a problem. And
Cool.
that's part of like updating and adding things. You're going to see that later. You'll see that happen later. We're going to add a bunch of objects in a little bit, and some of the fields are going to be missing. It's not going to be a consistent set of key value pairs. Some of the objects aren't going to have state or another key value, and we're going to be like, oh, wait a second, something's wrong here, so we need to update those. Ultimately, what we're going to be doing is creating something, and we'll do this later on, called a schema. And a schema is a template that defines that every object that is to be added to context must meet these criteria. Think of like a schema as a form, and you cannot submit the form until you fill out all the fields. And if it asks for a number, you can't put a letter, because it's like, well, that's not a number. If it's not an email address, if it doesn't contain an @ and a certain number of characters and a dot and a certain number of characters, it doesn't accept it. So a schema is a way for us to do kind of like validation of the content as it comes in, to create a consistency in our objects, okay? So that somebody just can't add some things but not add others, right? If we're adding people and we have their state, we're probably going to want that state later on to look at people who live in California or the people that don't live in California, right? So we'd want that information. We'd want them to force a decision. What state do you live in, right? Okay. We're good. We got 11, 12, 15. So everyone's still working on it?
Hey, Joe.
Yeah, sure.
Besides clarity's sake, is there any necessary reason to push enter to go to the next line? Could you just do it all in line?
You could do it all in line.
Okay.
Yeah. I think think conceptually like when you're creating an object normally. Like if I was here and I was just like, hey, I'm going to let obj is, equal to, I would do that, right? Name, Joe, comma. That's how we would do it normally, right? We're using the same kind of construct here.
Yeah, I was just making sure that the enter didn't have any kind of interaction with the database.
You know, that, as far as I know, it's going to work. Yeah, I don't believe it needs to be on the other line. When it returns the data to us, also, it sometimes we'll do it based on just one line, or we can tell it to like pretty the end results. Cool. Looks
If
like
you were to put like another object in there, would it indent further on the next enter? Would there be like 6 dots instead of 3?
6 dots. Oh, so you're saying if we wanted, so this is one object, and if we did a comma here and we wanted to add another object in there?
Well, if you did like an object within an object or something.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to say. We don't, and here's like the truth. We don't, once we get to Mongoose and we start using the GUI tool to do it, and we configure our server to do this, we are not going to be in here creating these things in such a way. You can see that this is a tedious process, right? No one wants to sit here and like go in here and create these things, right? So we won't be doing that. And so based on that, I rarely, besides teaching, when we're doing either Mongo or I'm doing Postgres or whatever database, we go in here to kind of work through the feel of working with a database from the command line, adding, removing, deleting. So you get the idea, because some of these commands we will use later, right? Or most of the commands we'll use later to create a collection and to insert, delete, or update, but we won't be doing this manually. And so you'll see when we do it later what that construct looks like. Is that cool, Jeremy? So now that we've inserted everything, right? And once again, our successful insert will just tell us that. Inserted, looks good, awesome. We want to add a few more things. And this we are definitely not typing out, right? This would take us forever to type out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy everything from DB contacts all the way down to the closing parens, and I'm going to paste it in here, okay? Does a nice job of pasting it, and if we hit enter, it will say inserted 5 items, right? That's what it inserted. So let's do this. Make sure I do this twice.
But we're not doing the Jennifer one, right? So
No, you are. Add the Jennifer. The idea is here that we have duplicates.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. We want to have duplicates. And the idea is that Mongo isn't really, it will allow you to create multiple entries, right? It's not here to say, hey, this thing shouldn't exist, right? I may have people in my contact, my phone book, like, I don't know, a Paul Smith, right? I'm sure if I asked you, I'm sure half of you have a Paul in your phone as contacts, right? Half of you have probably somebody that has Smith as their last name. It's a very common name. And then fewer of you have Paul Smith, right? But if you are around long enough, you probably bump into a few other Paul Smiths, right? So the idea is that I'm going to have multiple people with the same first name, same last name, not the same phone number, obviously. They probably wouldn't have that. Maybe they live in the same state. What we're not seeing here, we're adding things to the database, but what we don't see is that the database itself is creating a unique ID for each one of these elements. Every one of these is going to have a very, very unique ID. And that's what the database is using to control the uniqueness of each one of these things. Okay? And, you know, just back to reiterating, probably no 2 Jennifers will have the same number, right? I mean, this Jennifer did and this Jennifer does, and so now we have 2. That's a mistake. There was no kind of checking on this. It just creates the entries. So maybe we want to, once we make a decision to add something, we may want to say that that thing doesn't exist. Do a search, make sure that this thing doesn't exist, right? Check some fields. or set some sort of property that says only unique things, and it maybe automates the checking of the properties to make sure that the thing doesn't already exist. But right now we inserted successfully, right? And so that's what we saw successfully. And then Jennifer has a duplicate record. Oh, and then same thing. I think Jeremy, when you had mentioned like, can we update these things later on? Well, Claire doesn't have a state, which means we're going to have to add state to Claire, right? Alicia's keys are different from her name than others, right? She's got last name of Keys here. Oh, was that Alicia? Alicia's keys are different from her name than others. She also has an extra field for her last name compared to others, right? She's got last name. No one else has last name, right? Edda's phone number is a string with a hyphen instead of a number, right? The database at this point in time, without a schema, without a very strict way of allowing you to enter the information, is very kind of like willy-nilly. Do whatever you want. You want to do this, do that. Okay? Cool. So we got all that. How about we do this? We're at 11:08. It's like a few minutes past break time. If I push past the break time, I get so used to like getting caught up and stuff. So sometimes I just keep going. I just get excited with it. If we're hitting up that hour, you can be like, "Hey Joe, break time." I'll make sure we hit the break time. So let's go to break now. It's 11:08, so come back at 11:18. Break time. Come back at 11.
Hey, Joe, did you post this in like text anywhere? Because the image we can't.
Oh no, I took a snapshot of it. You want me to post the text?
Well, just to copy and paste it. I don't have the markdown open. That's
Oh,
why.
I got you. Okay, here. I'm just gonna do that, and I will do. Let me post it.
It's too. If I have the markdown open and everything, I wind up getting like too like distracted.
Okay. I don't. If you copy and paste that, I don't think it's going to change the change those little symbols. Sometimes it changes those single quotes to like some wacky.
No, you're good. That worked.
Good. All right. Cool. All right. I'm going to jump off to you just for a moment. Be back. Hey, is anyone out there fasted at all? Just curious. I know it's an off-topic thing. What's that?
I have.
I
It's
do
not
it a
my
lot,
favorite thing.
actually.
Awesome. Yeah, I fasted yesterday. I didn't eat anything yesterday, and I haven't eaten anything today. Trying to push it for 2 days. I've done it for like 3 days in the past, and it's kind of a wide feel. People look at me. I'm looking at Jacob's face. It's like the way people look at me when I say I haven't eaten. They're like, "You're so crazy. How could you not eat?"
That is literally what went through my head.
Yeah, people
It
think
feels good after, but during, I mean, the process is not fun. And I have a tendency to get really hangry, so like nobody wants to be around me while I'm fasting.
Oh yeah. So just remind us, Iris, when you're fasting, and I'll be extra kind. Like, don't say that, Aaron. You're gonna piss Iris off.
I just won't say anything. I won't talk to anyone.
Okay, then we'll know. Just give us a heads up. Fasting today, like some starving little belly and an icon.
I've just accepted I'm just gonna be fat because I love food way too freaking much.
You love food. I mean, it's a little thing called exercise. I'm just saying. You can eat as much as you want. All right. Just want to throw that out there. Cool. So let's get back to this. So we added all of our contacts, right? Now we have these things and we want to find them or retrieve them, right? So I'm going to say db.contacts.find. Without stating what I'm looking for, it's going to show me all the objects. Now, mine shows in a specific way, and I'm going to kind of do this. I'm going to add a setting here so that it does. Oh, what happened? Nope. Show. I think I have to do it in another show. Syntax is missing. Let me just do that. But, all right. Let me go back here. I'm going to do it again. Nope. I'm stuck in this way. Yours should have gone in a linear fashion. If you want to see it like this, there's this pretty command. So you're going to do it like that. That's going to show it like contacts.find.pretty. Okay, 2 methods. And pretty is going to show it the way that I have it. Now let's just make sure.
Joe, is the ID randomly generated by Mongo?
Yes. So that's where I wanted to kind of point out here. Now that we have this. So one of the things that the database does to provide uniqueness for all of the objects is it generates an ID. And that's the same with all databases. All databases have their own mechanism, and it's always an ID or you can change it. In some other databases, you can say that I want this key name to be the primary key. By default, it uses an ID as that key, and it gives it this long GUID. So a GUID stands for Global Unique Identifier, and it's using everything from 0 to 9 to the letters A to F. And based on this combination is a really low, minuscule chance that there's ever going to be two elements in this collection that have that same key, right? I don't know if it's definitely using some randomization behind it, but let me see, actually not. Looks like 5CC31. Here's CC, here's BB, here's E. So there is some of this information that is kind of consistent. So maybe it does it based on a time that we added it, something like that. I'm not sure how it manages the key. That's the database's thing. Like, that's not my job to deal with how it manages it. I just know that it's this object ID that's going to be the unique identifier. And the fact that we have 2 Jennifers, there's 2 keys, right? I'm just taking a look at the end. 6A1 and 6A0. And here's the empty object that we created earlier, right? It's empty, doesn't contain anything except an ID, okay? And we don't manage that. That's the thing that we don't really care about. The IDs, it's going to do its own thing. When we search for things, we can grab the ID and use that ID to target this thing later. And that's something that we're going to do. When you edit in elements in the database, you have to target its ID, right? So when I create these things maybe in the DOM, I might include the ID as some sort of key, maybe a data ID attribute like you did with the memory game, right? So when I click on edit on the thing, I can elicit its ID and then use the ID as part of a URL with the URL parameters, right? And grab the ID, send it. The database, that route knows :ID, grabs the value, and then queries the database based on that particular element, okay? So we're able to get all of the elements back, right? Now, I'm just going to Command K to get rid of everything. I want to find one specific thing, right? Or find things that meet a criteria. So I'm going to say db.contacts.find, right? This time I'm going to say I want to find where the state is California, right? Boom. And then it's returning all of those entries that are California. Okay? Easy enough to return multiple items. Now, sometimes maybe you want to return things, but you don't want that ID, right? The ID is something that's under the hood. I don't really want to see the ID when I'm building the object. So maybe I want to return the things without an ID. And so we can do that as well by doing db.contacts.find, right? I'm going to go to the next line. I'm going to say state again, California. Okay, now this takes a second, I would get a second value, a second kind of flag, you would say, right? I mean, it's taking another object as kind of that flag property. And here we're going to say, I want you to show the name, and I don't want you to show the ID. So this is just the syntax that Mongo uses. And I'm going to say pretty it because I want to see it pretty. So what it's showing us is this. Find everything that has state, the entries that have state, and show the name, and do not show the ID. So here, this kind of one value is kind of like an on and zero is off, kind of like a truthy falsy thing. We're just indicating the ID key we don't want to see. Okay? So let's give that a shot. Let's see, loop. Why does it keep doing that? It's like showing me the last. All right, there we go. I don't even have to have the thumbs up. There you go. Once again, the number one is just the true, show it, zero, just don't show it. And we're limiting to what we want to see. Versus when we just did find California, it showed us everything, all the properties of the person that had California. Sweet. Oh, here's my, here we go. 14, 15. Looks good. Let's see my little light. Show my light. There we go.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
So with the past examples that we've been doing when we're just doing that model file, we've had just like one number indicating like the position that it is within the array. Sure. So this ID now, is that what we're going to actually have to pass through our URL, or are we able to break it down to like a single number or just numbers versus that long string?
Yeah, you're going to have to pass it in the long string. So if I just do, let me just do find again, right? You're going to have to say, I want this particular entry. So you're going to have to find that thing, the thing that has an ID equal to that, right? Instead of the generic, that ID that you were pushing in, because that was the key. So when I also teach doing it that way, before I teach databases, sometimes I teach an object that has a key, and we just start incrementing the number, and then that's how we find a return. If the key is equal to such and such, return that object. It's the same. It should be the same here. So let me see. So if I went back to, instead of name, let me try. I just want to see if we did underscore underscore ID, and we gave it no quotes. Let me see. Did I put too many quotes? Let me see. Is it going to show us? No. So it's not showing us the element. Maybe I need it to be double quotes. Let me see.
You have to put in object ID.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. There we go. So I'm going to leave that double quote there. So, oh, what the hell did I do there? Let me just get out of it. Object ID. All right, don't. There we go. Is it not? Object ID, pretty. Nope. I think it's still expecting something else.
I think you need another parenthesis at the end of the object ID.
Oh, I got it. So I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna grab this. Let's try doing it one more time. All right. So get rid of. Here's our object ID. Right. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Let's get rid of this. Boink. There we go. That's how we're gonna reference it. Okay. We'll reference it via this way. Now, I just want to kind of, reiterate that we're learning to use these commands here in the terminal as, Mongo-based commands. When we get to Mongoose, we're going to reference it just a little bit differently. Same thing, though. If we want the key, we got to reference the key, right? We got to give it the key or the object ID that we're looking for. But rarely am I in the terminal window doing this. This isn't like a standard thing, but you need to work with it. It's learning to work with databases. This is the way that you get to truly understand what's happening under the hood. Cool. So we found it, and we even went and so far as found in the idea of the thing. Now we want to remove something, right? So here we go. So I'm going to say db dot contacts dot remove. What do we want to remove? I'm going to remove, I'm just going to do it as one line here. Jennifer, right, that should work. Bloop. Okay. How many things did it remove? Just based on that message. In removed was the number 2, right? We removed both of them. So if we do this just kind of like, hey, remove everything that has this value, well, then it removes it. It did exactly what we told it to do, right? So 2 records were removed, right? 2 here. Okay, so we want to get Jennifer back. I'm not going to type all this out, so I'm just going to kind of paste it in there. Boom. And then we'll get Jennifer back, okay? So here, I'm going to give you a moment. Catch up. Delete Jennifer, and then re-add the 2 Jennifers. There you go. Remove the Jennifer, and then reinsert the 2 Jennifers. Sweet, we have 13. Okay, we're at 20, looking good. Remove Jennifer, we added Jennifer. Okay, 21, looks like we're almost there. 122. Give it another few seconds and we'll jump right in. Is anyone hitting a lot of like syntax errors? That could be slowing people down. 324. All right, looks pretty good. We'll get started here. Okay, so we removed Jennifer. We added 2 Jennifers. Now let's target something, right? But we can also run the query again. So I'm going to say db.contacts.find name. Okay, Jennifer. Not pretty, right? We still get 2 of them. They're both back. So now we want to use some additional parameters here to state we just want to return the first one. Okay, so if there are multiple entries, just return the first one, or just remove the first one. I'm sorry. We're going to, just going to show that again. I'm going to do db.contacts.remove. Okay, we want to remove a name, Jennifer, right? And we want to state just one, true. Loop, 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 boom. And 1 was removed. So now if we do find Jennifer, we will only have 1 entry there, okay? Give you a shot to remove our 1 Jennifer. I keep doing that. Okay, now when you're done with remove,
Is there a way to permanently install that pretty function?
oh yeah, the pretty function is towards the end, or at the end, anywhere in your bash shell. You can't do it in the window that you have Mongo running. So anywhere, if you were to copy that, I'm just going to copy. I already have done it already, but if I was to open up anything else and do it, it should turn it on and turn it off. I tried to turn it off earlier, but it seemed like it just stayed on. If you don't want to do pretty anymore, I'll just paste this into, there you go. If you want to open up another terminal window that is not an active window, Mongo is active, MongoD is active. If you want to type in anything here, it's not going to work. Nothing in Mongo besides Mongo commands works. But if you go here and you were to paste that, you shouldn't get any errors. And then
So will that still be there the next time that we open up Mongo?
I think so, because what it's doing is it's writing, it's taking this, it's echoing this command, and it's using these double pipes to add it as an entry to the end of the Mongo RC file. So it should do that. If Mongo RC file, and this is our profile. The little tilde is your profile. So in your profile, there is a Mongo RC.js file. And this is what we're editing. So we're editing something at a much higher level in our profile, and it's always going to look to the Mongo RC file for configuration settings. Cool, we got 15.
Hey, Joe, is just one an inherent property of Mongo?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Is just one, is that an inherent property of Mongo? Like, where does that come from?
Oh, yeah, so that's an inherent property of Mongo.
Okay.
So Mongo has these configs, just like when we were looking for, let me just get where we were just at, right? So name Jennifer, name Jenny, results, find. Yeah, just one is a key that it knows to look for. So anything after Like this is the thing that we're looking for, and anything after it is going to be additional kind of properties or filters that we're looking for to implement. Let me see, do we have any here? Like here, I said that I want find state, but in this instance, it's like name one. When it sees name one, it's like, oh, you want just the name. This is what we're filtering. This is what you want me to return, okay? And when we do this, we're just telling remove. That's what we're looking to remove, but only remove the first one. Yeah, it's a default built in. Right. Looks like we're good. Okay. And if we were to find, let me just see if I find Jennifer, we only have one, right? Awesome. So we've removed a Jennifer, and now we want to do the update. So part of this CRUD, right, we did a create. We've created a bunch of stuff. We've read. By reading, we've done a find to return everything. We've done a delete so far, where we removed an element, and now we're going to do a update element. So I'm going to say db.contacts.update, okay? And let's say what we want to update is Jennifer, okay? And we want to update her name to Jenny. Okay. There we go. Now we updated her name to Jenny. So if we were to look for Jennifer, find Jennifer, well, Jennifer doesn't exist anymore, right? She doesn't exist. But if we change that to Jenny, we'll get the object back. Okay. So we just did an update. Let me, what? I'm just going to do this. I'm already, there we go. Let's get everyone up to speed on that. Well, give me a thumbs up when you got that. Once again, this kind of right results indicates that it worked, it found a match, okay, and it modified the match. So this is our update. So we've just done the full CRUD functionality. So all the CRUD methods, at least Mongo side, we've done. We'll see later on when we try to do, when we're working with the Mongo Mongoose, when we start up a server and working with Mongoose, we're also going to see that there's commands there that are unique to the Mongoose tool. And those are going to be similar to what we're doing here. So do the find, we can have a find one, and there's specific commands like find one and update, find one and remove. There's going to be other commands that we learned via the Mongoose, but this is what Mongoose will be executing under the hood. These commands is exactly what Mongoose has been configured to do. Cool, 13, looks good. All right. So we updated Jenny, we got it, we found Jenny, she came back. We can remove Jenny again. So there's only one Jenny, so we can say db, I'm going to get rid of all my terminal commands and just do db.contacts.remove, right? I'm going to keep it all in one line because, you know what, it does get a little annoying. Jenny, all right, boom. And Jenny has been removed, okay? We got rid of Jenny. I'm going to go ahead and just, copy and paste Jennifer because, once again, I don't want to have to keep typing that stuff out. Working with the commands, these smaller ones, I would suggest just type it out, kind of internalize it, get used to it. But if there's more of them at times, I don't want to type all those things out. But for now, we should be typing as much as we can. So cool. So go ahead and remove, and we'll update. that thumbs up. There we go. Cool. Looks good. So the next thing that we want to do here, where are we? Move Jenny. What's my place here? Update Claire, set California. Here we go. We're right here. We're at this set command right here. Okay. What I didn't show earlier is when we did do the update, it kind of wiped out all of the other properties of the update. So let me see. Do we have Jennifer in there? So I'm going to go find Jenny, update. I'm going to change this, and then I'll recreate. So the name is Jennifer, right? We're going to change it to Jenny. I'm just going to do the update, and I'll go ahead and I'll remove and I'll update, right? So now I'm going to just find, let me see, find Jenny, and look at Jenny now doesn't have any of the properties, right? Surprised my pretty's not putting it on separate lines. Jenny doesn't have the additional properties. All I said was, hey, update Jennifer, give her a new name of Jenny. And by doing that, it wiped out the previous key value pairs that were also part of Jennifer. I just wanted to update Jennifer's name to Jenny. I didn't want to remove the rest of her properties. So that's one of the kind of downsides of Mongo. If you don't tell it specifically not to rewrite the whole thing, then it kind of rewrites it and it gives it an empty thing now, right? So I'm going to go back and remove Jenny. Sweet. I'm just going to go back and add Jennifer again so we have her, right? All right. I'm going to find Jennifer and, oh no, did I just remove Jennifer again? Oh, Jesus. That's not what I wanted to do. All right. So instead of find, I want to find Jennifer, right? Jennifer, boom. So we have Jennifer. She's back. Cool. So now we're going to do the update again. I'm going to say db.contacts.update. Okay. I'm going to update, and I'm going to, once again, I'm just going to kind of keep it all on one line. Name Jennifer. Okay. That's what I want to target. I want to target Jennifer. I want to then say this. I'm going to use this $set command. And what it's saying is, under the hood, it's saying, I want you to update the name stated. Where's the other object? Set, two of these, one of those, boom. But I want you to keep the rest of the properties intact. So don't mess with any of the additional properties. Just change the name to Jenny. That's the update. So I'm going to say find Jenny, and now we should have maintained all of our properties. Okay? Take that. Give you a chance to. Okay. Catch up there. So that's what set's using. It's meant to just target that one property and do not delete the additional properties within this particular object. Sweet. We only have a little bit left, and then be jumping into lab time soon. It's good. Move this over. So I'm gonna clear my screen. All right, looking pretty good. Okay. So once again, we can find everything. So I just want to find everything that's in this collection, right? Not a lot of elements, just a handful. We have that default object we created. And there's Claire, Morris, Licia, Etta, and Jenny. That's it. Okay. To answer the question earlier, like, can we give or update an element with a new key to keep our data set kind of consistent? Well, we can. So Claire has no, where's Claire? Claire has no state. She's missing a state as a key. So we want to say, hey, DB contacts, I'm connecting back to the collection. I'm going to use the update method. I'm going to go to the next line for this one. Name Claire. Oh, am I doing it right? Oh, I messed up there. Here we go. Claire. Yeah, there we go. I kind of should have put that on the other line, but that's fine. I'm just going to put this all as one line. $set state is California. Okay, that closes that closes set. This is going to close the updates, and it should update Claire. And once again, we're going to find, and if we find Claire, now she has a state. Okay. We can give it. So it's kind of like when we said use learn. So at the very beginning, when we created the database, we used the command use learn. And by using the command use learn, we actually stated if the thing doesn't have, if a sub-database of learn doesn't exist, go ahead and create it. That's kind of the underlying command there. And it's the same with this. So we said, hey, we just want to update the name of Jenny, right? That's all we said. And then don't touch any other of the other key value pairs. Don't delete them. It's the same with this. If the key doesn't exist, it will then create the key, right? If there's nothing there to update, then it must somehow create the actual key to do it, okay? Then we can validate that she does exist, and we created this additional key. So let's get everyone up there. Oh, that's the same one as before. Hold on. That's not the command. Let me just delete this. I don't know what my Mac damager tool is just so buggy today. There we go. That's what we're looking to do. Give me a thumbs up. Get that done. Show pretty. Make sure it's done. Okay, just a couple more commands. Sweet. 18. Looks good. Now, another property that we're going to see here is that we should see that Claire now has a state. So we don't want to have to query for that field, right, that we want to change. We can query for the match. It's kind of what we did, right? Want to query for that. Now, the other thing is we can add, by default, update will only update one record. right? So when we did this, I said update. I wanted to update a record. And it said, give me the record that you want to update. And I said, oh, I want to update. If you find more than one Claire's, update all the Claire's, right? That's kind of the statement that we're making here. But find our Claire. We only had one, so find the one Claire, do the updates. And here it's kind of like, if state exists, give it California. If state doesn't exist, create the state key. But we can also say that we want to update, so contacts, update. We can update multiple, I'm going to do it all as one line here, multiple objects in the database, right, or multiple documents in the collection. Best friend, true. Okay. If we do that, let's see. Where's the best friend? Best friend. We only, here we go. That wasn't multiple objects. We were targeting the empty object. I'm sorry. We're targeting just the empty object to do that. So if we want to do multiple objects, that was just this one empty object. Once again, if there's only one matching thing that has nothing inside of it, and that's the matching thing, right? If we want to target multiple things, well, then we're going to do db.contacts.update. Okay, I'm going to go to the next line for this. We're going to say empty object, right? All of the objects. We want to do set, and we want to say BFF, that's the key. We want to say true. And now we want to use an additional parameter and say multi-true. No comma, boom. Now that we've done this, we can see that 6 matches have occurred. And if we do a find pretty, we're going to see BFF, 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 BFF. All of them have BFF. Even the default object has the BFF. Okay? A moment to... Oh, so annoying, this thing. You know what? I'm just going to copy it. I'm tired of doing the imager. All right. Give me a thumbs up when you're able to update multiple elements.
Did you click special characters before you pasted that in there?
Yeah. I put the 3 backticks.
3 backticks?
Oh, did you copy and paste this and did it not work?
No, I was just wondering like how you got to display it like that.
Oh, yeah. So here, you would just do this. Backtick, paste, backtick, 3 backticks. That's how you get it.
Okay.
It's good. Oh my God, that hamburger for a guy that's been fasting all day. Oof.
That is what I'm getting for lunch, Joe. See, this
chips.
Joe, you know you want to do it. Just give in.
I do. No, the whole point is not giving in, Aaron. That's the whole point.
I'm gonna be like the worst person to help you with that. Okay, I'm that little devil.
Savage, Aaron.
Yeah, I don't know if you're helping me or not. I feel Aaron's helping Aaron. Aaron's like, I'm gonna break Joe if I can.
Exactly. I'm glad you're catching on.
No, I had a feeling. Awesome. These commands are going to obviously come in handy when you're doing the lab, because the lab is all about creating a database, a subdatabase, a collection, adding elements, and then finding things based on using these particular constructs. Okay? So let's hit it. Let's go to the next one here. So we want to search for multiple values, right? I want to find something. So this is kind of like running a if statement where you would do something like, if something is true and true, right? That's kind of what we want to say. If it has both of these things, return the thing. That's ultimately the statement that we're going to be making now. So I'm going to say contacts dot find. Okay, we're going to say name is Etta and state is California. Boop. Boop, 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 boop. And so we're able to return Etta and the person that is or has the state equal to California too. I don't think we have two Ettas in here, so I think we just did Etta, we would have found Etta also. So give you a moment to do that. Let's put that in here. State.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Can you back up a step
Sure.
to when we were doing the multi?
Sure.
So the first argument is just the empty curly brackets. Is that what is that?
Okay, so that would be originally when we did it up here, we targeted the empty bracket, and we were just like, so once it found a first matching thing, it updated just the one matching thing.
Okay, so that is specifically looking for.
This was looking for anything that. Yeah, so what I believe that this was doing right here was it was looking for a first thing. Since we didn't really specify what we're looking for, it's just going to grab the first thing that it finds. And
okay.
the first thing that it finds.
The third line where it says multi is what is causing it to be added to every single one of the. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So this kind of just like selects all. It's like using jQuery. Select them all. This selection, and then this would be selecting all of the elements and then maybe looping over those elements and resetting a property like .css or something or .attr. So it sets all of that. Cool. Update.
So Joe, just to follow up.
Sure, yeah.
If we still had two Jennifers, we could have put Jennifer in the first inside of that empty curly bracket thing, and it would have added a BFF to both of those Jennifers, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if we stated here Jennifer, then I'd have to test it out to see if we stated here specifically Jennifer. Then yeah, from what I understand, it would if we stated we wanted something very specific. A thing, if we had multiple ones, then yeah, it would have targeted both of those. I'd have to test it out though.
Or does the multi-line mean everything inside of this will get it no matter what?
That's a good question. I'd have to test it. So we can always, add a new Jennifer. Let me just see if I can grab a new Jennifer. Let me see. And we have one Jennifer in here, right? So do we have one Jennifer? Yeah, we have one Jenny. So let's do this. I'm going to add a Jennifer. Now we have two Jennifers, right? So if I find pretty, I should have two Jennifers. So let's test this out. So I would say db.contacts.updates. And we're going to say name Jennifer, right? Okay. Name Jennifer. We are going to do set maybe BFF. Why don't we change it to false? And we'll do multi true. Let's see if it did it. So it did it to one, but this Jennifer did not have that property. So for some reason, it was either just going to target the first one itself, or because this one didn't have the property, maybe we have to go back and use this command here just by itself to do the target.
I think you misspelled.
I think you mistyped the party.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. Okay, so let's try that now. Multi. Let's try. Oh, yep, to match. There we go. Yep. I did think it should. Since I didn't get an error message, right? It was it telling, did it give any error messages? Blah, blah, blah. It didn't really give an error message earlier. So it's one of those things like without a clear indication of the error message, you're going to have to go back. But yeah, the fact that when we did this earlier, it would have created the thing if it didn't exist only goes to make sense that it did. And it only targeted the both Jennifers. Yeah, cool? And you will use it now, and you will use this during the lab, but I wouldn't stress these too much because once we get to Mongo, we're going to be approaching it in a different way. But you need to know how to make these queries. It's just one of the fundamental things. It may say, hey, write a query, write a Mongo query right now. I've had students go on interviews and they've had to write Mongo queries or Postgres queries, whichever language they were using at the time. Okay. So now we can also use a whole series of query selectors. So let me open up the query selectors. Our query selectors here allow us to select specific things within ranges like equal to, greater than. So if we're talking numbers, we can specify numbers. We can use logical operators like or not, or nor. So we have quite a few operators that we can use here when looking for something. We're going to use not equal to. So let's just take a look here. Is that up here, the name, not equal to, right? Matches all values that are not equal to the specified value. That's what we're looking for here. So we're going to go down. Just going to clear my screen. Say db.contacts.find, right? I'm going to say state and is not equal to California. Okay? Curly brace. Two curly braces, boink, boink. And so it's going to return everything that is not California, but also, look, it returns this particular one, and it didn't even have a state. But it returned it anyway. Let me give you a second to do this one. Now, obviously, we have the way of finding the things already based on a particular name, right? So we don't need, in this instance, like equal to, because we definitely know if I just type in the name, it'll return back whatever name I had put there.
At least I'm not the only one trying to discourage you, Joe. We all apparently started posting food now.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I wasn't even paying attention.
Sorry, now I just
focused. I have like the sharpest mind, Aaron. Like ninja sword sharp. It's actually quite the rush not eating. Can't explain it. Try not eating. And then we can have a conversation.
Adrenaline rush to see how long it takes for you to pass out. Like, is it?
No, you'd be surprised. You can literally not eat for. I've watched some documentaries, and some people have not eaten for weeks.
Oh dear God!
Straight, and your body can handle it. You give it proper water. You take care of it. You rest. You don't try to push yourself. You can do a lot more.
Wow. Yeah, love food way too much for that.
Yeah, I have no desire to go weeks.
Yeah, I don't really have a desire either. This was just a thing. I woke up and I was like, I think today I try to fast once a month. One day, maybe 2 days. Sometimes I push it 3 days, depending. Well, looks good. 12. All right. So let's hit the last few ones and then we can. All right. Oh, yeah, we're almost done. Sweet. All right. 10. All right. So here we go. We've had our contacts, right? So we know that we have our subdatabase, we have our collection, and then we have the elements in the collection, right? Documents. What we want to do is say we want to just kind of get rid of the whole collection. We could just do db.contacts.drop. Okay? And that's a common command across the different database tools. I use drop all the time in Postgres, as you know, and that's an SQL database. So now we've dropped it, and if I said, you know, DB, I know that I'm in learn, right? We don't have that collection, right? DB, I think it's show collection. Let me see if I just do show collections. Does it show? Show collections is not a function, so it doesn't. Show collection. We have to tell it specifically, and if we do contacts, it's not there. Contacts is not. Or is it not? Show collection. Am I typing this wrong? Show collections. Oh, here we go. I was doing it wrong. Show collections, and we don't have the collection anymore. Okay. Collection's gone. I'm in the learn DB. We don't have any collections, right? So if we wanted to create the collection, just once again, go through that process. db.create collection contacts, boom. And then if I said show collections, I'd be able to see it, right? And then if we want to drop it, we tell it db command contacts.drop will then drop the collection altogether. And if we show collections, there will be nothing there. And then we can drop the database. So just remember these commands being because what we'll want to do sometimes, drop database more importantly, because there's times when you want to restart your server, recreate the database to repopulate elements inside of it instead of creating multiple entries. So if I just keep like starting up the server and the server is configured to like seed the database, and by seeding it creates the collection, it creates the database, it'll create the collection, or it'll connect to the database, connect to the collection, and then add elements. And then you'll just have, instead of 10 elements, you'll have 20 because you restarted the server again, or you have 30 because you did it 3 times. Sometimes we drop the database, recreate the database, recreate the collection, just so that we know we're starting from scratch. So I'm going to drop the database, and there's our database. And we can say show DBS, and our database now is gone. It's no longer there. Okay? So I'll give you a second to drop database. Just put the commands in here. Drop the database. Drop the collection. And drop the database. All right. Just give me a thumbs up when you drop that. We'll X out. And we'll jump into the lab.
Hey, Joe,
Sure,
if we want to put that echo DB query thing in so that it's pretty,
sure.
How rapidly would that work? Because I just copied and pasted the.
You have to do a control or a command C to get out of Mongo and then start Mongo back up.
Yeah.
For it to take effect.
I did it also, and I tried to turn it off earlier. I was trying to turn it off pretty still.
In the same window that we're working in now with the contacts,
exactly.
I have to stop it and restart it.
And we're going to do that. We're in Mongo, right? So I'm just going to type in exit or control C, and we'll get out of Mongo. So if we're here, then I could turn mine back off. I had mine set to true. I could set it now to false. And if I do that, and then I go back into Mongo, if I was to create a collection, add something, then it wouldn't be pretty, wouldn't be the default anymore. Now, I don't want that, obviously, right? So I want to keep things pretty. We want what's most efficient for us, right? So I want it to be that way. And then if I went back into Mongo, and did stuff, it would now take effect. It's no different than like updating your bash shell or something. You have to get out of the terminal window and reopen it because it's not a dynamic thing. Like when we're updating the server and we have, what's the tool that we use, that we installed that monitors the server for any changes? Anybody remember?
The initialize one?
If we want, what it's the node.
NodeMon?
Correct, NodeMon. Oh yeah, you know what? I forgot. I posted it in the wrong channel. Let me see. Just making sure everyone did this. Just give me a thumbs up and then I'll jump into the lab. Drop your database. And let's get into the lab. It's good. Okay. So let's jump into the lab. Let me post the lab here. Edit. Nurture. And,
Joe, do we get a break before lab, or are we just going straight into lab?
you know what? Thank you for reminding me. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? See? I could just keep pushing. It's that hunger. I just got all that energy. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? I'll assign the lab, and then I'll walk you through the lab. 12:15. Come back at 12:25. Break time. We're going to get started in another minute. There we go. 12:25, back in. Sweet. Let me just breakout rooms, recreate. 3 participants. Okay. Recreate all rooms. All right. Before I open the rooms, so the lab is Intergalactic Bounty Hunter Database. Looks pretty badass. Was that like a raccoon? Raccoon badass raccoon there.
Wait. Hold on. Pause, Joe. You don't know who that is?
No.
Rocket.
Oh, all right.
You're not into Marvel at all, I guess. I'm assuming.
No, I do a lot of reading and like learning stuff.
And starving yourself. Don't forget.
Yeah, I starve myself. So you're going to be creating a database, right? Obviously for the Intergalactic Bounty Hunters database. So the setup here is, once again, kind of what we did, starting Mongo, typing in MongoD, right? Going into another tab, typing in Mongo to start up Mongo so you can actually interface with it. We know that using the use keyword will create a collection, or I'm sorry, a subdatabase if it doesn't exist. If it does exist, you'll move into it. Then you'll create a collection of bounties, called bounties, and then you're going to start inserting records inside of it. You'll insert multiple records, and then you're going to run through some of those queries, reading and querying specific documents based on properties. You'll remove, you'll update. And then if you're hungry for more, there is another lecture, intermediate lecture right here, and it goes through additional operators, so intermediate find operators. And so you can start querying using those operators, these comparison operators. Okay, start getting your hands dirty with those, using ORs, explaining intermediate operators, and I think at the end is where, yeah. So it actually you'll just be using those to update and find things based on criteria. And then here, you can then follow the commands to perform your appropriate finds for each of those things. Okay, I'm going to say this is probably going to take at least an hour. So why don't we come back at 1:30, and then we'll talk about. Just give me some feedback on the lab, and then we'll break for lunch. Cool. I'll be around. So if you need some help, you can always try pulling me in. Jerica's out there too. Cool. Any questions? Anything? It's good. Then I shall open the rooms. Let me just make sure that Jerica is not in one of these rooms here. Sometimes I put us in the rooms together. Jerica is not in the room. Emily, Flynn, Jeremy, Owen, Iris. Okay, so I'm going to move to 6. Nope. All right, here we go. Opening up all the rooms. Nope. They're all open. Sweet. What's up?
Hey Joe. Hey, I'm stuck on trying to get this to only return the names. Like I can get the names returned if I do captured true and then like name one ID 0
Okay.
or captured false, but I can't get it to return everything with just the name.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
This is still the galactic one, right? Not the.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Just want to make sure. Yeah.
Okay, so well, I've gone on and worked up a little bit here. Let me move this out. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, there. Can you zoom in on it a little bit?
Maybe. What is it?
Command plus. Yeah. There you go. I don't have great eyes, so I'm looking at it.
Better, or do I need to go more?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, so like I can do that and get the captured ones, and I can do.
Oh, I get it. So you're doing captured
that
false.
and do the true, but I can't get it to return all of them. I've tried all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that. So the first one says captured false, return the name. ID 0 means don't show any of the keys or anything else, right? Just the name.
Yeah, it's trying to do this to return the names of all the bounties.
Okay. But all the bounties where captured is true. Well, if I look at this as a filter, I would say if the element has a value of captured is equal to true, show it, right? How many have captured true? Can you like show me the whole thing?
Just one. Well, should just be one anyway.
Oh, okay. Then that's all right. So let me just take
captured true, false, false. Yeah, it's just one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So your query light there. So let's think about this. It's saying here, do a query to return just the names of all the bounties.
Right.
Right. Now the bounties. Let me just take a look at like the database. I'm gonna have to take a look and see what's going on here for the bounties. And the bounties are the bounties their name, the name of the bounty hunter?
Yeah, name.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just want to. So if we want to do that, we wouldn't do captured true, right? Because now if we captured true, we're only showing the ones that are captured, right?
Right.
So we want to return all of them and just show their names. So I believe it would be, just let me take a look. I was
going to say, I'll show you some of the stuff that I've tried.
Sure.
There's one. I've tried empty strings. Nothing.
Empty strings capture. I think yeah. Let me just take a note. You know, because it's one of these things.
I told you, sure, I'm out of things to type in.
Yeah. I don't spend and you won't either. You won't spend a lot of time inside of this particular tool. This is good to kind of work through the query. So when somebody's like, "Hey, how do I do all this?" I'm like, "Well, let me find." So now I'm just looking for in the lecture finding the thing that matched that. So obviously we have to use find. I'm almost thinking find. If we did find with maybe an empty. What if we did find with, I think, what if we did find with an empty object as the first parameter, an empty object, comma, and then you do the name thing that you have up there, name, curly brace, name, :1.
And then ID.
Yeah, if you don't want the ID, you can just close it off. I mean, you can get the idea. We don't care. We're just trying to get this thing to work.
ID 0.
So, curly's, parens. Let's see if that works. There you go. Did that do it?
Yep, that did it.
All right. And once again, go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that did it. And I think where I was going wrong was I was trying to give this something here.
Yeah, you were giving it a feel.
In the lecture thing, it had something in the first argument.
Yeah. And I got to be honest, it's like I said, I haven't played with Mongo in quite some time, worked with it. I mean, I know it and I know the other databases. So when I approached this, I was using just like deduction. So I thought, hey, I remembered when we wanted to like update something, whatever the method was, we just had an empty object. All right, so let's start with an empty object. And to get a field from the things back, we just did another object, a second object, and we told it we wanted the name to be 1, and it only returned back 1. So I was using a combination of the material that we covered. Once again, if somebody asked me to do this 2 weeks ago, I would have been like, I don't know, I got to look up the document. I haven't done this thing in forever. And like in another 2 weeks, when we're using Mongo to do it, Mongoose to do it, I will have the same effect. Like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't remember. I only did it like this one time and like a few times after. So,
yeah, I think this was as close as I got to that one, is even at empty. Maybe that one, but I tried all kinds of stuff.
All right, you got it. Good, yeah. And
all right, thanks, Joe.
Sweet. All right. Thank you. I'm going to share this screen and then show them. Just wait for everyone to get back in. Boom. Okay. Everyone's back. So it seemed like a good turnout for people that completed Intergalactic. A few were still working on it, and it looks like a bunch moved on to the started Hungry for More. It's good to see. You might have gotten stuck with a few smaller, like one-offs, trying to figure out how to return, all the names or something. A lot of it is also deducting from the previous things that we did, like trying to combine that combination. I was helping Thad, and I just told Thad, there's times that I've worked with kind of Mongo in the past. I've worked with Postgres. I've worked with these other databases. So sometimes when you learn a new one or you're working with it, it's a matter of just kind of piecemealing things that you kind of learned from here and then this one. Hey, maybe if I move them together and I do this pattern, I can achieve the same results. Because if somebody asked me 3 weeks ago, how do I do this, this, and this with all these queries that you're making, I wouldn't be able to say, oh yeah, straight from the hip, I could do that, right? It's not as easy. Even building an Express server from scratch, remembering about body parser and all that. I can't write that stuff from the hip. It's like, I know body parser, let me go look at it. So trying to memorize everything isn't always going to be possible, but leveraging what you already know and trying to like combine those two. I did, we're gonna go to lunch. Just before we go to lunch, I was just gonna share, I'm gonna share just 2 tools that I had found online. Like, once again, I haven't worked with Mongo in a little bit, but 2 tools that I have found online just to kind of convey what's happening here. you can use these GUI tools to connect to the database so you can see the entries being populated. And so I just kind of created the hunters subdatabase, I created Bounters collection, and then I imported all the things. And you can see them here. So sometimes I like using these GUI-based tools. This is just one tool that allows me to see it. I can change it from a list view. I can change it to a table view, so I can kind of see the data just a bit more clearly instead of doing it from the terminal. And then this other one, this is like a 30-day trial license, so I wouldn't use it after the license, right? And this also looks more kind of, I don't know, kind of more technical. It doesn't look as kind of UX-y as this one, but same thing. Here's a collection. Here's the hunters subdatabase. Here's the collection. Here's a bounty collection. And then here are all the things. And if I try to connect to it, it would say, hey, connect to the database at 27017. I connect. And if I made any changes, it would be updated. So I just want to show you some tools. We won't be using these tools. I'm just kind of showing you a visual way that sometimes maybe later on when you're building out the apps and you want to like add things and you, instead of doing a query from the command, you just want to have a tool that shows it. Sometimes they come in handy, but we won't be learning these tools. Cool. So we'll go to lunch, and I will see you all back at 2:30. Cool? I'm starving. I'm starving, needless to say. So
please eat, Joe.
No, I'm going to hold off, Aaron, for you now. Doing it for
no,
you.
That's not. You're not punishing me. You're punishing your stomach.
Better than that, Aaron. You're better than that.
I'm going to get a burger.
All right.